First time I'd ever come off injured in my career, and that was it. Career done and dusted. Do people think that's who I am? Yeah, 100%. They associate me with things that I did on the pitch. That's all they ever saw.
Danny Mills!
Into his post. What a strike.
Delighted to say today we're joined by Danny Mills.
I never went into something thinking, I'm doing this for money. Doing it to win. I played with broken leg, broken fingers, broken ribs. That's what really annoys me now when people say, they're just doing it for the money. All of these players play for the love of it. Don't listen to the outside noise. These people do not know you. They don't know who you are, what you're going through. One thing you never expect is to have a funeral for your child. It's not the normal way of the world. My kids are the most important thing in my life. No one else matters. People talk about legacy. My legacy is my kids. I've got one super athlete. And the other lad, well, he's a footballer. I can be very blunt. I can be very direct. The pain never gets any less. Time does not heal. Time gives you the ability to deal with things differently. People want to hear the truth until you're honest with them. If you believe strongly about something, have an opinion. We all make mistakes in life. So be compassionate to yourself.
Welcome to After the Final Whistle with me, Alison Bender, where we speak about life off the pitch. I talk to former players and managers about the emotional reality of retirement at an often young age, rebranding, identity and purpose, because after the final whistle blows, that's when the real game begins. Remember, we're proudly supported by Samaritans, and if you're having a tough time, you don't have to go it alone. They are there to help and support you 24/7, day and night. The number you need to call, it's free, is 116 123. So on with the show, and I'm delighted to say today we're joined by Danny Mills. Danny, thanks for your time today. I know that whenever you get introduced, it's always by your label as former England international, former Leeds, all of your other clubs. Today, I'm going to try and talk not about football. We both do it for a living, but to get to know the real person behind Danny Mills, the footballer. How do you feel about those labels? I mean, I guess there's an element of pride. It's part of who you are.
Yeah, it's who I am. People say, do you mind? Do you mind people coming up and wanting a photo? Do you mind people wanting an autograph? If I'm honest, in this day and age, I'm quite glad that someone remembers who I am.
Yeah.
It gave me an incredible life. So I'm not going to diminish that, and I'm not going to say no to those sorts of things. It's a big part of who I am. When you play for England, when you play in a World Cup, it elevates you to another level, on a national level, if you like.
Yeah.
And then the fact that I've still done media, TV, radio ever sinse, it keeps you a little bit current. I guess now it's interesting. Now I'm starting to come up, and people go, "Oh, you're George Mills's dad." My son's a runner. My other lad plays for Oxford. It's like, "Oh, you're Stan's dad." It changes over time, as the generations that watch me sort of have got a little bit older, and their kids, if you like, the next generation, no idea who I am.
And you're still so young.
They're not massively bothered, but it's what it is. So no, I don't mind it in any way, shape or form. Does it define who I am? No, not in the slightest. Do people think that's who I am? Yeah, 100%. Do they associate me with things that I did on the pitch? That's all they ever saw. So what else? They don't have any other compass or any other vision, I don't have a different pair of eyes to see me through a different lens.
Yeah.
So all they've seen is football. So well, you must be that person. Yeah. And of course, it's 90 minutes of a 7-day week is generally what people...
Yeah, I mean, it shapes who you've become, but it doesn't have to define you, I suppose, is a good way of putting it. Let's start with retirement then, because obviously with footballers, you've got club and country. Sometimes they're simultaneous, sometimes not. Sometimes it's a decision. Sometimes it's injury. For you, it was a difficult one. Talk to me about your retirement.
Well, international, I was retired. I've still not technically retired from international football. I've just not been picked. That's how it goes.
It's funny that though, isn't it? It doesn't feel like a moment.
Yeah, it's just, you just don't get picked anymore. That's it.
And when do you let go of it? How long does it take you to actually let go of that thought?
First summer holiday you have.
Yeah.
I say, international-wise, from the age of 20, I was with the 21s or the national team for 8-9 years, getting 2 or 3 weeks off in the summer, if you're lucky. Don't worry. I was delighted to be involved in them. Travelled an awful lot, didn't play so much. Obviously was in squads, was on the bench an awful lot. Would have continued to do that until now, given that opportunity. But it wasn't. So it's just, you just get on with it. It's part of life. From the age of 15, I was training Boxing Day, cleaning boots Boxing Day, doing all those sorts of things. It's a normal life of a sportsman. We're not the only people that suffer with this. Now, there's lots of other people that work in sport, different sports, in and around sports, that work Boxing Day,
Yeah.
that work Christmas Day. Get on with it. It's one of the best jobs in the world.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. But I think for me, obviously, I was injury free completely until 27. No issues whatsoever. I'd been at Man City just over a year. Played at Highbury against Arsenal. Broke my leg. Missed the rest of that season, November, literally till the end of that season. Came back the following season. Needed some fitness. Went on loan to Hull. A friend of mine was the chairman. Hull had just been promoted at the time. Going from Man City to Hull was a step down, obviously, but actually something I really enjoyed. Phil Parkinson. Parky was the manager at the time and really enjoyed that. But after 9 games, got another fracture in the same leg. Missed the rest of that season. So that was that. And then came back to Manchester City. Obviously was rehabbing and everything else. Did my own pre-season, if you like, and then came back into pre-season. And Sven had just come in to Manchester City. Obviously, I knew him from England. And he was brilliant with me. He came to me and said, look, he said, I've just bought Charlie Corluka. We've just spent £8 million on a right back. You've been out for pretty much 2 years, solid. You've played 10 games in that time. He said, obviously, I know what you can do. I know you well. He said, I trust you. He said, you have a choice. He said, you can sit on the bench every week and be part of the squad. I will not play you won't have to play reserve team football. Or if you want to go and find another club on loan or permanently, that's entirely up to you. And I went, you know what? Fair play to him for being honest.
Great honesty.
It's all you want. You don't
Not every player gets that.
But you don't want anything else as a player than honesty. Don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me as it is and I'll deal with it. You don't always like it, but you can deal with it. It's the not knowing that kills you half the time. So I went, right, okay. So bizarrely, Phil Parkinson rang me and just said, look, would you be available to come to Charlton? Pards was the manager. I said, yeah. So yeah, I'll come. Not a problem. He said, right, let me try and swing it with a manager. I think Pards had heard Ben Thatcher had gone there the year before. Thatcher was my mate at Man City. We were lively, let's say, on the training ground and around the place. I think Pards was a little bit sceptical about taking me. Parky managed to persuade him. And actually, once we got to meet each other and once we worked with each other, we had a fantastic relationship. And I still think Alan Pardew is one of the best managers that I've worked for. We were doing great. Second in the league, I think, come Christmas. They wanted to keep me permanently. It fell down. It was a financial thing. I had 3 or 4 years left at City. So bizarrely, I went to Derby, left Charlton, went back to City for about a week, I think. Went to Derby on loan with a view to maybe sign him permanently. After that, it was the season they were terrible. They got 11 points. Played the first game. We narrowly lost. Then I played a cup game. And then the second league game that I played away to Portsmouth, twisted my knee 30 minutes into the game. That was it. Came off. First time I'd ever come off injured in my career.
Wow.
And that was it. Career done and dusted. Saw the surgeon on the Monday. And I got one of those. I got a bit of a... Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we can... We've done several of these before. We'll have a go. It's, got a lot of... Didn't realise until about a year ago, where I looked back at some of the reports and the scan reports. Bizarrely, I turned it over, and there's like one line on the back of this report: "This may well finish his career."
Oh,
I'd never seen that. I'd never seen that before. I'd never really.
Probably a good job.
Well,
it would have been a lot to take at such a young age.
I guess the way it was written, it almost looked like it finished on the first page. So I'd never thought to turn the page over. Oh. And that was the case. I spent 2 years in rehab, trying desperately to get fit again. But it wasn't to be. So age of 31, retired. Quite interesting because you get to the end of that period at Manchester City. I'd been, out injured for a long period, 2 broken legs and a knee that finished me. City fans would be like, oh, he's just taking the money. Okay. What would you like me to do? Give it back? Not happening.
And also, just to interject, because I've worked obviously within football clubs, the guys who are rehabbing work harder than the guys that are on the pitch.
I went to the US. I worked with an individual physio away from the club because I was difficult. I wanted to be working. When I was at Leeds, we had a physio, Dave Hancock, that went to Chelsea and then went to England. Dave brought in the rule about 9 till 5 when you're injured.
Yeah.
So I had that mentality. I was working day in, day out.
Relentless.
Was getting weekends off, but working at home. But it was hard work. I wanted, but I also understood that I wasn't a priority because lads that can play Saturday, they're the priority. It's a pecking order. I get that completely. So I went to the States. I worked with Dave again, did some private stuff and worked a lot away from the football club because they trusted me to do the work and try and get as fit as possible. But ultimately, it didn't happen. And it probably was towards the end of that 18 months where there was a decision to make. I was almost fit. I was probably 80% fit, back to running, back to doing lots of normal stuff. Wasn't quite there. And it got to the point where something still wasn't quite right. And I went to the physio, went to Jim, and I said, Jim, got a feeling this is in my head. I said, really concerned now. I've had pain in my knee for 18 months. 2 ops. I think it might be in my head now. Because I'm just expecting, it's like when you do a fitness.
Which happens, there's some really interesting research.
It's like when you do a fitness test.
Yeah.
All you're looking out for is, does it hurt? And sometimes it's, best way to describe that, sometimes someone will just throw you a ball, you just catch it, and suddenly the pain's got, oh, no pain anymore. When you're thinking about it, you're focusing on, does it hurt? Does it hurt? Or can I feel something? So we went and did a load of tests. It wasn't in my head, bizarrely. And then I went around the world, had one last chance to try and get another op. Saw 7 surgeons around the world. Müller-Wohlfahrt in Germany, 4 guys in the States. Went to see Brian Cole in Chicago, who was the Chicago Bulls surgeon at the time. He was the only one that was going to fix me. I sat in his office, went through everything, and he went, right, okay. He said, yeah, we can fix this. I've done one of these before, second time. 1, okay. Slightly nerve-wracking. Said, right, what we're going to do, we are going to slice your shin bone, take a triangle section out of it, lift it up, move it, pin it, take your kneecap off. I went, whoa, stop there. You ain't. I went, no.
That's a lot.
And he went, it's a 2-year rehab process. I went, no, I don't know.
And off the back of all the other rehab you'd done.
Having been out for 2 years, I went, if it works, this will be 4 years. I went, realistically, I'll be going on trial to non-league clubs. What's the point? I went, I'm not prepared to do that. And in the end, I went, so I'd been to see Müller-Wohlfahrt, legend that he is in the medical world. And in the end, I went to 2 guys, Lars Peter and Mats Brittberg in Kungsbacka in Sweden, who were doing cloning effectively and growing cartilage outside of the body. I went to see them. Long story short, they went, look, this operation, we can grow your cartilage. We can't get it back into your knee properly. Your pain with a year's rehab will come down to maybe a 1-2 level. Our operation might be a 1.5. Even if our operation is incredibly successful, you'll never play again.
Right.
I went, okay, job done. And at the time, that operation was about 75,000 euros. So they'd just gone ethically correct, just been 75 grand to give me the good advice. So that's what I did. So hung my boots up in that summer. Press release comes out, Manchester City released Danny Mills. Well, not technically. there was reasons, but again, you deal with that.
It's so frustrating though, isn't it? Because now we have social media platforms to put the message out there. But when you're hearing people say he's taking the money or,
I did.
Saying,
don't get me wrong. I was
the frustration.
I'd earned that contract.
Yeah.
What was it? I was trying my best to get fit.
Yeah.
I was.
And those lengths that you went to. Not many people would go to
6 months in America and
lengths.
train on my own all the time to get unbelievably fit.
Yeah.
just didn't happen. I was desperate to play again. Absolutely desperate, but it wasn't
I mean,
to
it
be.
sounds like it. And you know, such a young age as well. At that time, you didn't know all the things that you would end up going into. But football would have been your life and
Oh,
your
yeah.
sole
Well,
focus.
yeah. So the first year was hard. I had 4 young kids.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, okay, what do we do? Let's just take a year. Let's just take a year and see what happens. Let's pick the kids up from school. Let's take them to football, take them to clubs, go to swimming lessons, do all those things that you
Yeah.
haven't had time to do. One thing that the long rehab had allowed me to do was have weekends off. So I'd grown accustomed to sort of being at home on a
Family
weekend.
time, yeah.
So I'd almost had a bit of, this is what it looks like on the other side of the fence.
You had that transition
A
rather
little
than a
bit.
handbrake.
Yeah, it wasn't overnight you're done.
Yeah.
You know, it was a transitional period. So I'd had a little bit of like, oh, I quite like weekends. It's quite nice on a weekend off. You know, being able to choose what I want to do. So then, obviously, I finished. The first year was hard because I wasn't quite sure what to do. I'd done my coaching badges, but didn't want to dive straight back into that because of the time element. I thought I've given 15, 17 years of my life to football. I need to give the family some time now.
Yeah.
I need to spend some time with them. You know, as great as that life is, wife and kids are on their own a lot.
Yeah, there's a sacrifice.
You're traveling internationals. You're all over Europe. There's you're away from home an awful lot. There's no violin, don't get me wrong. So I just thought, right, give them some time. What I did find hard was maybe making decisions. So I would get maybe a job offer to do some media. Do you want to come down to London for the weekend, do a show? They say, oh, no, thanks. Can't be away from the family. If it had been a football match, I'd have been away all week. I wouldn't have even batted an eyelid. Suddenly it was my choice to make decisions. Do you want to go away? Do you want to be away from the family? Do you want to miss a football match for the kids?
And choice was something that as a player,
and
you barely had, right?
No.
Choice it's
made
very for you.
You're dictated to.
Yeah.
You are told when to train, when to eat, when to have a day off. That can change at the drop of a hat if the manager wakes up in a bad mood. So your life is dictated to by what the manager wants to do.
Before we continue with the conversation, I just wanted to speak to you a bit about why this podcast is so important to me. I've tried to create a safe space where footballers can talk about their real thoughts and feelings and isolation as well. So for me, it was really important to find a partner that shared the same values. Johnston's Paint really care about their customers. They work with tradespeople who often graft alone, so they can really feel that isolation. They've also been a part of the football world for years with the Johnston's Paint trophy, so it made complete sense. An open space for sharing feelings, for talking, and for reminding people you're not alone. So After the Final Whistle is delighted to be partnering with Johnston's Paints. Okay, on with the conversation.
And it's great, don't get me wrong. You don't have to think. You just do as you're told and you get on with it. You know, okay, things change, plans change. It can upset family, can upset you and whatever, but you get on with it. Suddenly having your own decision to make, that's a little bit different. And that's probably that first year of going, I can decide what to do with my life. Oh, should I? Shan't I?
Did you have a sounding board? Did you have someone that you spoke to, like whether it was your wife or sort of a career counselor?
No, but it was things like school holidays were going away.
Yeah.
So every school holiday we were on holiday because up to that point you can't do that. You know, school holidays do not fit in with a football season. As the kids finish, you go back to pre-season and generally you're away for 2 or 3 weeks. It's long days. So you miss all the summer holidays. So we just went, right, every school holiday going away. Simple as that. Spend time with the family. And that's what we did. And then slowly you just learn to get into it. I had other interests in life.
Life looks very different, doesn't it? So suddenly you're, like you say, you have your world dictated by a manager or a football club, and it's so different. That dichotomy must have been very strange for you.
And that's what it is,
and for your wife.
And also I was very young, I was 31.
Yeah.
So suddenly you're going, you're in her pocket. You're getting on her nerves. I'm spoiling her routine, that she's had for several years with the kids. Doing this, seeing friends and doing whatever, looking after the 4 kids and, can I this is how we do things. All right. Can we not do it? No, this is how we do it. Oh, okay. Can I? No. It's like, all right, okay. And you sort of...
It must be really weird.
You're a little bit of an outsider in your own life almost because there's routines and that work. and you get used to. But slowly, of course, that changes over time. I sort of fell into media, I guess. But I had other stuff going on in my life, business stuff that I was happy to look into and do. Media I wasn't really fussed about going into to start with. Wasn't particularly bothered. And then just thought, actually, what else am I going to do? Did I like watching football at that time? Not really. Was I that interested in other teams? No. But got an offer from Five Live to start doing some games and bits and pieces. And it went from there. Worked with some great people, Mike Ingham, John Murray, Ian Dennis,
the best of the best.
Even Alan Green, who we had our differences, but we did a lot of games together. Champions League finals, World Cup finals, whatever. Learned an awful lot, but just learned from these people. And that was always me. I always wanted to learn and be better at what I was doing, whether that be football, business, media, whatever it was. So I just listened to these people. And then so I fell into media. There weren't too many players doing it back in 08, 07, 08. There wasn't the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just you finish, you go straight into the media, or you do it while you're playing. I
guess because you can have your own platform as well, so it's a little easier. Like back then, there were only a limited number of stations. I just want to take you back a little bit because it's interesting. Everything you're telling me, I often think that, and I've been told, that footballers are one of the easiest types of people to work with. They're incredibly resilient because they're being used to being told that they're not very good.
Some of them
They're dropped without any reason. And you're constantly building resilience on the pitch.
Criticism is much easier to take than praise.
Yeah.
Someone praises me, I go, "Oh, hang on, what do you want?"
Did managers not praise you?
You don't get praised very often. From the age of 12, 13, being involved in a professional setup, maybe slightly young, maybe 11, you never have the perfect game. There's always something you can do better. You're always being pushed to do better. I wasn't, but let's say I was a striker. You've scored 2. You could have scored 3. You missed one. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. I can't remember many games you came out. You were amazing.
No,
it was
because
always like you were
they're
great,
always trying to develop you. Obviously,
of course, you were trying to get better.
Your parents are saying, "How can we get you better?"
You're trying to improve all the time. So
you never reach that plateau.
Never,
because like you say, you're still climbing, and then you were still climbing when your career ended.
You still get, you have the best game of your life, but there's still things that go wrong in that game, or you get away with because you get a little bit lucky. So criticism is much easier because I can do something about that.
Yeah.
If you as long as it's constructive and it's realistic and it's from somebody that I respect, I go, right, okay, take that on board. How do I get better? And when I first went into media, and you'll probably understand this, it was very sort of lovey. You were great. How good was I? Oh, you were brilliant. You were brilliant. And I would go in and go, what was wrong with that? What could I do better? And it unnerved quite a few people because they didn't want to give criticism. I think in media of that time, it was very much like, oh, you were great. You were fabulous. You couldn't have been, it was the best show we've ever done. No, it wasn't. It was rubbish. Just tell me straight.
So again, you've got these weird changes. You've gone from this football environment to this media environment.
2 different worlds.
2 different worlds.
So I would say, criticism is quite easy to take.
Right.
Praise is a little bit like, really?
Wow.
What are you after? And I still find that now.
Yeah.
It's much easier to be, because you can do something about criticism. It's very hard to do something about praise. So it's, how can I get better? How can I improve? If I say you were brilliant, it's nice to hear.
Doesn't really help
but doesn't really help you.
Yeah,
And that's what it is. And I think that's that mentality of
I feel the same. It's funny you say that when I'm in the gym.
And it doesn't matter whether it's...
Me,
of course it is.
That feels a bit weird.
Sportsmen, top businessmen, elite people have that mentality that success is not a given and you've got to keep going because there's always something to be better at. There's always something that you can do better. There's always a learning to take from something. And I think that's what success is. It's driving yourself to be better every single day.
I want to get into some of the successes that you've had because you've obviously got, I can feel you have an elite mindset. And obviously in After the Final Whistle, this is a series about mental health, and we're really lucky to have the support of Samaritans as well, because there's a lot of people that have been through a lot of stuff that can then build you and make resilience. I know, going back to your playing days, you had a very, very tough time with the loss of your son.
Yes, I mean, and that's not a problem. You know, we had four kids, obviously now, but obviously we'd had two,
Yeah.
and then we had a tragic loss. We lost Archie in the November 2002 on Remembrance Sunday. You know, he had spina bifida and hydrocephalus very, very severely. Didn't survive birth. That was played out in the media a little bit. Again, this is before.
Yeah.
This is really before internet, before social media and all those types of things. We'd played Sheffield United, and we'd lost. I think they were a Division 2 below us, whatever. I was at Leeds. We'd lost the game. We'd had a bit of a row with the lads in the dressing room. There was a lot of shouting going on, and all that sort of stuff. So we'd then been told, I think that was the Tuesday or the Wednesday. The Thursday, we went for an appointment. Had no idea. Took our two other kids with us, and were told at that point that Archie wasn't going to survive. And obviously, my wife would have to give birth and go through that, you know, experience. So it was a very, very difficult time. Some very, very good friends, you know, were around us, and colleagues as well. Actually, Nigel Martin, Gary Kelly were brilliant, you know, during that period, and dealt with the football side of it for me. Told the lads, got in touch with those, made sure that if and when I came back, where have you been on holiday? You know, that sort of, which would have been fine, and I'd have dealt with it, but it would have made them feel more awkward than me, effectively. So they dealt with that. And then I got a knock at the door on the gate buzzer. And I went out, and there was a journalist there. And I'd been crying at some point. Eyes were red and blotchy, and, you know, a lot going on at that stage. The gate didn't open. I went out to see him. And he wanted to run a story on a supposed fight that me and Mark Viduka had had. I was like, look, mate, just go away. And I say he was lucky, because had the gate opened, I'd have probably ripped his head off.
Yeah.
And he went away, and he published a story about having this fight. So I had to come out on a few days later and do a piece in The Guardian about what had actually happened and get the truth out there.
Because I read it, and it was...
Yeah, he was going to publish a story that wasn't true, effectively.
Yeah. Sad that you had to take it. If you were perhaps not ready at that point, or your wife was not ready, you kind of felt...
I'm not sure my wife was still ready. You know, 23 years on, you know, Archie would have been, you know, like sort of, you know, at this period. But we took that, we dealt with it. I went back to training relatively quickly afterwards. You know, within a week I was back training. You know, there are those moments where, and any family that goes through anything like this, you're going into hospital pregnant, expecting to come out with a child. When you know you're going in and there's going to be no positive outcome, that's hard.
Yeah.
I was dealing with a lot of other stuff. I was making sure, are the kids okay? Are they being looked after? What's happening? The grandparents sorting them out. What are the arrangements going to be? How are we going to deal with this? What's the funeral going to be? All these types of things. So I was busy doing other stuff. Obviously, for my wife, it was just one thing. You know, you are going to give birth, and it ain't going to be good. Simple as that. And you know, I remember having to almost drag her out of the hospital, kicking and screaming. You know, did not want to leave that place, and it was a tough time for a long period. I was fortunate in the way that I had football. That was the ability to get away from it, if you like, you know, and switch off for a moment, you know, just be in those moments of playing football and having pure concentration before suddenly it kicks back in again. But yeah, you know, it's tragic. It happens. You know, it happens to a lot of people in life, you know, tragic circumstances.
But you were living. I think the difference is that you were living it out in the public eye.
Yeah, and that's not easy. But
grieve alone.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, you surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
close family and friends, and you listen to them. Don't listen to the outside noise. These people do not know you. They don't know who you are, what you're going through on a daily basis. So
This is the important thing, Danny. Sorry to interrupt, but I think it's so important. You know, you are one person and there are so many footballers in all the leagues of the pyramid. And at any point, one of them could be going through this and we have no idea about it.
Yeah.
And we're likely to not know because a lot of that is very private.
One thing you never expect is to have a funeral for your child.
Yeah.
It's not the normal way of the world. You know, parents die. You know, that's the natural course of the world. It's, you know, it's the natural order. It's going to happen at some point, and we expect it to happen in a certain order. But on the flip side of that, we wouldn't have had 2 more kids, and they wouldn't be the kids they are today. All our kids are very, very aware of the situation. Of course it changes. People say, do you think about it? And is the anniversary particularly poignant? No, because it's every day.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't really matter what day it is. It's still... And I say to people, I say, look, you're going to have an anniversary every Wednesday. You're going to have an anniversary every Sunday. You know, it's like... Or every, you know, whatever.
And the little points in life that just crop up on you. And
there are funny moments. And there were funny moments that our kids did. And without the other... We were lucky. We had 2 children at that stage that we had to focus on and help get us through that. Has it affected them? In some ways, it must have done. You know, it's impossible not to. But they've all grown up knowing what the situation is. They're very, very aware of that. And it's part of our lives. It's part of our story. It's part of of what we are. So that's, life's tough. You know, I got involved with charity because for me, it was a way to get awareness out there and a way for me to deal with it. My wife didn't want to know.
Yeah.
And still struggles a little bit with it.
Of course.
You know, doesn't want to talk openly about those moments unless it's obviously with very close friends or you know, personal family. It's still tough. And there are still days where, you know, there's probably not a day goes by where she doesn't think about it.
Of course.
You know, and that's just how it is. But like I said, we wouldn't have had our other kids. We wouldn't have had the life we have today. So yes, it's tragic, but it's life, unfortunately. Life can be a bit shit at times, you know, excuse my language, but that's what it is. Life can be tough. You've got to roll your sleeves up and sometimes just deal with it and get on with it. And then, of course, you know, after that, more children, lots of more scans, all these types of things and going on and on. And then 3rd one was premature. I missed a game for that. I had to drive to Norwich from Leeds to Norwich. Got there in about 2 hours. Clearly broke a few speed limits. Sorry, Mr. Policeman. And our 4th was 7 weeks premature.
Yeah.
And caused chaos.
And that's with it. I'd imagine you had to be in the hospital for a long time.
It was touch and go for 48 hours. I stayed with him. It was obviously emergency cesarean. I stayed with him. The wife couldn't go because obviously she just had an operation. And even at that point, nurse saying, it's a bit brutal what you're going to see. Obviously, you know, putting pipes down and, you know, getting them onto a ventilator and all that sort of stuff. They went, you might want to, I ain't going anywhere. I'm not leaving the room. It's not happening. And and again, it's part of what you go through. It's part of your story. It's like...
Probably makes you more empathetic as well. And I think when other people are going through a similar, like I'm sure now when someone has a 20-week scan, your first question isn't, what's the sex?
No.
Because there are more important things.
What it does do, it makes you realistic.
Yeah.
And you understand, you know, all the things that can go wrong. What you don't understand is how many people go through that until it happens to you. And men don't really talk about it.
No.
You know, we know that.
And this is why I love hearing you speak about it. And I'm sorry to ask you.
No, it's not. It's not.
But it is important.
Oh, of course it is.
And some men don't feel they can.
The amount of people, and that's why I did the charity stuff, because it was a way of me getting it out there and talking about it rather than having to chat to mates and that be a little bit awkward, if you like. It was like, I can stand up in front of a room and I can talk about this.
Yeah.
I can talk about what we're going to do. The awareness that needs to be raised.
Isn't that funny that you can talk in front of a whole room of people and it feels more awkward for you to chat to your mates?
Yeah, because I guess it's a mask.
Yeah.
You know, you can pull that mask down
and
you can go, right, okay, this is me talking to everybody. You know, I can hide certain things behind that. But you still get it out there. You're still getting it off your chest and letting people know what it is to deal with.
You're talking, and I think that's really important. I know in the Guardian article you spoke about your wife and you talking and crying. And I do think that's the first stage in anything, talking to someone. Would you agree that helped?
Without a doubt. I mean, there was
like not bottling it up.
People might disagree. I think it's far harder for the mother.
I think there's both elements.
I get that, but for me personally,
yeah.
I think to go through that as a woman, to do, I think that is the hardest thing on the planet, bar none. I don't know. People might disagree, but I just think it's what your body's designed to do.
Yeah.
It's your purpose in life, effectively, and it hasn't, happened the way it was supposed to happen. So but I think there was must be about a week. I don't know when it was. I snapped. Lots of people there, and I went, "Does anybody give about me?" Because I was arranging everything. Exactly. It was all about. I only did it once, and people went, "Oh, maybe he's not." I went, "Oh, I'm okay now." But I just needed that outburst just to go, right, oh, by the way, this affects me. But I was dealing with it in a different way. And that's the way I've always been. I've been logical. I've been practical. Let's plan the next step. What's going to happen? How are we going to deal with this? People say it's not shutting emotions off. It's just how I am. It's not a deliberate thing. I'm not going to be emotional about it. It is what is who I is. My nature, to be at those moments where you cannot do anything. You just want to help. You want to take pain away.
Yeah.
You want to take the hurt away. You can't. There's nothing you can do in those moments. How do you console somebody that's inconsolable? What can you say? What can you do? Nothing is the answer. Just got to be there, and you work it out. And it was we dealt with Colin Cooper, a good friend of mine. Obviously, lost his son Finlay, who sadly choked when he was 3. And it's interesting. You start to learn from different people. How do you get over this? You don't. First and foremost,
no, never.
People say time heals. No, it doesn't. Trust me. Time does not heal. Time gives you the ability to deal with things differently. That's all it is. The pain never gets any less. You just find different coping mechanism and a different way of life to deal with those painful situations. And that's what it is. And you say even now, when you speak to people that go through serious tragedy, whatever that is, how do you get by? Right, okay. You live hour by hour. You live day by day, week by week. And you do that until it then becomes month by month. And it can take time for a lot of people. There's no timeline.
No.
This is right, this is wrong. Just say to people, just get through the next hour. Get through the hour after that. And then it becomes 2 hours and then 4 hours. And slowly you start to be able to process and deal with stuff. And that's how it is.
And you were having to do that whilst when you should have been probably top of your game.
Yeah.
You're playing for England.
I did
you're
score.
Playing for Leeds.
It's a bit of a release.
Hard though. Really
of course,
hard.
yeah. And I think we went away with England the following summer. My wife was pregnant again. And that was probably the most worrying time because you're coming up to those moments again. Is this going to happen? What's going to happen at this stage? And that's constantly playing in your mind. That's more of a worry, if you like.
Yeah.
And again, I say it's the unknown. And it goes back to that, be honest with me as a manager. Just tell me.
Yeah. That moment when you're having that scan and everyone's looking around and there's faces and you know they're about to say something bad.
The only, I guess, what I've suffered since, Stan suffered a horrific knee injury when he was at Oxford first time round on loan. Last minute of their game, snapped his patella tendon. Very, very serious injury, excruciating pain, green pen on the stretcher on the pitch and all that. Luckily, we were there. Remember taking him down to the surgeon. And at that point, you go in, he's gone into surgery, and you're just thinking, is it going to mend? Are they going to heal it? Is he going to play again? Is he going to walk again? And I remember getting
Because you've been there.
Oh, of course, yeah. And all these things going through my head, and it's worse because it's your child. He's 19, 20 at the time, but you're just thinking, this could be his life over at that stage. And I remember getting the phone call from the surgeon and speaking to Andy Williams, and he's like, it went brilliantly, went as good as it could have hoped, fixed it, going to be great. And you just have that emotional, and I tried to leave the family a voice message, and it took me about 3 or 4 attempts to get it out there. It was just like, couldn't get my words out, because the relief that it was okay, that he was going to be at least okay to try again, was like, God for that. And I think, and again, it's little moments that catch you sometimes.
Vocalizing is difficult, isn't it? Sometimes I think that's a sign perhaps that you are bottling it up, for want of a better word, because when you actually have to tell someone else, that can be really tough.
Oh, and it's only thing that matters. My kids are the most important thing in my life. End of. Give everything up. My kids are okay. That's it. Fine. Done it. No one else matters. So to see what, when they've worked hard and when they've done stuff and whatever, and then you're thinking, well, the rug's pulled from under you through no fault of your own. It's like, I know what this could be like. I was fortunate. I got towards the end of my career and had it, so you're thinking of this, it's tough. Sport's tough at the best of times.
Yeah.
When it gets whipped away from you, when it's your dream, it could be really tough. And you do, and I don't care what anyone says. I think, your emotions double, treble, quadruple when it's your kids involved.
Yeah.
It's like, have a go at me all you like. Wouldn't recommend having a go at my kids too much, because it might come back to bite you, that one.
Yeah. You're from a generation, same as me, where I think that mental health support was not available. It wasn't talked about. So it sounds like you've had a lot of struggle and you've learnt your own ways to deal with it and cope with it.
I think we're more resilient as a generation.
More resilient for sure.
Fact.
Well,
no, fact. We are more resilient.
To blow our own trumpets.
No,
but we had to be. There wasn't the
There was
help.
no other option.
But do you feel like if you were going through all of this in the world there is now, where there is a lot more support, perhaps by the footballing bodies, perhaps by the clubs, that would have made you deal with things in a different way?
No, I think I was always my own person from a very young age. It's who I am. It's been great in the sporting world, the mentality that I have. As a dad, as a husband, sometimes it's made it more challenging. Bear in mind I started having kids at 21.
Young, yeah.
Was finished by the time I was 27, had 4. It's like, okay. It's tough, no one teaches you how to be a dad. No one teaches you how to do all those types of things. But I'm still roughly the same now. I've softened around the edges a little bit. But I deal with my kids as I was dealt with. There are rules.
You're a strict dad then?
Yeah, there are rules. There are consequences.
Yeah.
I will love and support you as much as possible, but step out of line and you're out. There's kids will say and they've all successful, different jobs. Hard work is mandatory. You don't work hard, I'm not interested. Simple as that. Be the best that you can. And that's all I ask. And if you're going to, and the boys will especially will say, even the daughter, if you're going to do something, do it properly.
Yeah.
That's it.
Simple, really.
It's not difficult.
Yeah.
It's like, don't
no
play
shortcuts.
No, don't play at it. Life's about consistency and hard work.
Yeah.
No one ever got successful working 9 till 5. No one ever got successful being handed stuff. It doesn't work like that. You have to work for a living. Yes, people get a leg up from time to time, but you still have to work hard. People get a break, but you have to work hard when you get that break. If you get that opportunity, you've got to grab it. And that's the principles that I live off, my kids live off, and they know
But it's even harder in a way because of the success that you've had. Your kids know in the back of their brain they could probably just kick back and dad will sort them out.
Well, they won't. No, they know full well.
They know.
They know full well that ain't going to happen.
But that's hard, isn't it, to instill that? I remember David Beckham saying, making his kids work from a young age? Because
and it's very easy now because obviously I've got one super athlete, and they go, "Oh, it's easy because your dad was a fit footballer." It doesn't work like that. And the other lad, well, he's a footballer. Oh, well, it's easy because you were a footballer. Again, it doesn't work like that. You know, one lad that's a chef, the most ridiculous hours on the planet. Daughter, you know, went and got a degree from Oxford Brookes, now in PR, is now, you know, incredibly successful, you know, still only 24.
Wow.
They're driven. And because and you can imagine the pay scale, the difference between a footballer playing in the Championship now and a chef.
Yeah.
The hours are a little bit different, the pay grade, but they're all treated the same. You know, you have to work hard in my house. That's a non-negotiable. And they all know they will be looked after and supported as long as they work hard. And I don't think it's that difficult. People often say to me, they said, "Oh, you surround yourself with sort of," I said, "I surround myself with successful people because they're of a similar mindset. I don't suffer fools very easily. Can't stand lazy people." Do I have some prejudices maybe that I shouldn't have against some? Yes, I do, if I'm honest, because I believe that you get out of life what you put in.
Yeah.
The harder you work, yes, you need a little bit of luck along the way, but ultimately, the more you put in, the more you get out.
And as a pundit, you have to work hard, and we've had this discussion ad
it's
nauseam,
easy.
haven't we? But there are some ex-players who rock up and just expect their experience to be enough. But
yes, being a pundit, I think is quite easy. You know, you get time. Being a commentator is really hard because that's a completely different skill set.
Yeah.
Being a presenter, completely different skill set to being a pundit. I was very lucky early on. Worked with amazing people, and was told early on, if you're commentating, you're there to describe what's happening. I'm there to describe why it's happened and a
which
little bit of
comes
insight.
naturally to you.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
I was a leader on the pitch. I was a leader in the dressing room. It's like, well, yeah, this is why it's happening.
But you still received a fair bit of criticism.
Oh,
Did you feel it was unfair for criticism at the time? Did you feel attacked?
You always get, it's like, what do you know? You've never scored a goal in your life. Yeah, do you know what, mate? You work in a bank for a living. I think my experience is a little bit better than yours.
But is this you now in hindsight?
No,
it's
always been
and resilient,
me.
really?
Yeah, no,
so you never felt.
I mean, I played for Norwich. I think we lost 5 to Port Vale, 6 to Port Vale, 5 to West Brom. I got sent off in one of them. I think we were on the back page of the local paper, Teletubbies back 4. Don't know
And
whether I was
didn't
Tinky
hurt,
Winky.
that didn't hurt you at the time?
I was crap in that game. It was probably deserved. The only time it was unjust, and I didn't like it, and I ended up standing up for myself, was when we were supposed to go on a strike for England around the Rio debate and debacle. And obviously Rio was banned for a period of time, and a group got together, played in red, and said, we're going on strike, led by a certain person. And I went, no, not having it. I said, why? I said, well, you know, it's not right that Rio's been banned for missing a drugs test. Well, you know, whatever the reasons around it, when you get called for a drug test, it's the last thing you do is forget it. So you move on. I said, right, we're going to go on strike. I said, well, I'm not. And they said, we'll have a vote. I said, all right, okay. But there's a lot of young players in there. And I just thought, I'm not having this. I said, if you're going to have a vote, this has to be a secret vote. Because if not, there'll be players in this room. I'm still quite young at the time. Will be pressured into putting their hand up. Because they'll be looking around going, well, all these senior players are voting for a strike. If I don't, what's going to happen? So we had the vote. And I've said this in the press before. It came out, it was unanimous. My understanding of unanimous is every single person voted that way. I can categorically tell you it was not unanimous. And I came out and said that.
Right.
And I'm not sure that did me any good.
Right. Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things.
But you're not afraid to challenge the status quo.
No, I've made a lot of decisions on principle.
How old were you when you started being that way? Have you always been like
about
that?
5.
Really? Does that come from your parents?
I don't know. I was always annoying, obstinate, cantankerous, wanted to win at all costs.
Yeah.
And that was it, really.
But it's held you in good stead for what life's thrown at you.
And so this is the point.
Right?
In a business world, in a sporting world, amazing characteristics to be successful. Not always the greatest characteristics as a father and a husband, perhaps, because it's.
Although you've passed on great discipline.
Yeah, but I would say now if I could go back, I don't have any regrets. I would do things slightly differently.
In what way?
Often, in the early days, you take your work home with you. You take football home.
Yeah.
Having to have that separation is important if you can. I learned that when I went to Leeds a little bit. David Batty was great at that. Was the best in the world at that. Batts was. And I learned a lot from him. But, and it's not easy to separate the two. To be successful in your sporting world and then to come home and, actually, this is making me really successful. So I'll use these attributes to be successful father and husband. Well, you need a bit more than that. You need a bit more love and care and attention and all those sort of things. You can't just be dogmatic and go, right, we're doing this. It can't be military. And maybe that was me a little bit.
But who can blame you for thinking that way? Because you were somewhat institutionalised, indoctrinated, however you want to say it.
And also very young.
And very young,
at the time.
yeah.
And that's
and to be a father so
is.
young as well, it's a tough job. So, this series is all about, we've talked about struggle, but we want to talk about the positives as well, because I want people to feel supercharged and pumped after listening to this. And business is something that's found you. Like you said, you didn't know whether you were going to go into punditry. What made you think you were right for business?
I was lucky. I think because I'd always challenged things early on in life.
Yeah.
From the age of 15, 16, got some good advice from people. Still have.
Who gave you the best advice? Was it family or
friends?
Friends.
Got to know my financial advisor when I was 15. David's retired now, but his assistant.
Was that through a club?
No, this was through friends. Through him, got to know my solicitor. Still use him now. So you're talking 30 odd years. No contracts ever, just relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Good advice. Do we trust each other? Yeah, you keep doing a good job, I'll keep paying you. It's not hard, is it? It's a very simple way of looking at things. You do something bad, then you're out, and that works both ways.
But you never fell foul of people trying to take advantage of your situation?
I would always question things.
Mm-hmm.
From a very, very early age, why are we doing this? What's that all about? Why? Explain to me why this is a good idea. So got involved, started buying property at the age of 20, 21, when I moved to Leeds. Had a choice. Do you go into sort of like risky stocks and shares and schemes, this, that, and the other, or do you put it into property? Well, my guy went and said, look, if I was you, I'd put it into property. So I started building a property portfolio. And that's what I did. And that became successful and ran itself, really, until the end of it. I know where all the pennies are, knew how to budget, knew how to look after things. And if I didn't know, I'd ask. Was never afraid to ask questions. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And then you fast forward several years, and I was doing my own contracts when I was at clubs because I didn't trust agents to not take a bigger cut than they were supposed to. I wanted to be in that room.
How were you equipped to do that? How did you know how to do all of that? Asking people.
It's not difficult. And this is what I say to people. Negotiation's easy. You want X, the club want to give you Y, you're going to meet somewhere in the middle. You have a bottom line.
But you never doubted that your own ability to get the right worth, because people often bring in someone because they think they know
There's
more.
enough information out there to say, right, what is the pay structure at this club? What are other internationals of my ilk earning, give or take? It's in this ballpark. So you know roughly where you want to be. And then it's a case of going, well, this is my bottom line.
Yeah.
If you don't get there, I'm going to walk away.
And you cut out all those middlemen that so many people end up paying. Yeah.
And you need to be in the room because, going back 20 years to 30 years, there was unscrupulous deals from time to time. There was agents working for the player, for the club, for the buying club and the selling club. Sometimes getting paid 2 or 3 ways. That's not right. I wasn't going to be part of that. I wanted all the money for myself, or at least know exactly what was going to get paid to my representative. So I was never afraid to ask questions, never afraid to ask why. And we had a sports scientist came into Leeds, Steve McGregor, who's one of the best physios on the planet now, set up Manchester Institute of Health and Performance in Manchester, next to the Etihad, was involved in the Etihad campus, just under review of Spurs, looked after McIlroy for 12 years, all the golfers, now on the Live Tour. And we still have a great relationship now, and he looks after my boys. But he says, your dad was a pain in the arse. He said he used to question everything we did. What are we doing this for? Why? And at the time, he said it wasn't a bad thing because he just wanted to know, because he wanted the information to go, well, okay, that's fine. Justify why you're doing it. And that's what I always say to people. Whatever you get told, ask somebody to justify it. Because if they're good and if they know their stuff, they can justify it. They don't have to think about it. It's those that are not telling you the truth or trying to pull the wool over your eyes that struggle to do that. Anybody worth their salt in any walk of life, if you question their decision, we have to come back to you with an answer immediately because they know. And they know why they're doing it and they know the reasons behind it. It's quite simple. If it doesn't, it's like if I said to you now, why do you present the way you do? You'd be able to tell me.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it.
If it's your profession, you should be able to.
Yeah, exactly. You know, because you're an expert in your field. Somebody was there.
There are many people that question the way you do, though, and I think it sounds refreshing to me. And
it upsets people from time to time. I can be very blunt. I can be very direct. Not everybody likes it, if I'm honest. I always say people want to hear the truth until you're honest with them.
But you're not going to change now.
Not in the slightest. I might soften a touch.
You might soften.
But so then, I got into, after going through all those and going through CVAs and administrations with football clubs and all those types of things, became very obviously, resilient, looked after my money, knew what I was doing with it, knew what the plan was. Obviously, retirement cut that short. And then decided, had an opportunity. One of my best pals that was running a private equity house. We sat down probably 12 years ago now, and he said, look, I'd like to set up a smaller fund with individuals. I'd like you to be part of it. I'd like you to sit on the advisory board for it and be involved. And I think we can take this to a next level as a fabulous networking opportunity, investment opportunity, and a great opportunity to learn and put you out there as the football that's a bit different.
Exactly.
And that's what we did. We set up the first fund. One of our big deals was West Pasty Cornwall Company. We bought that, turned it around, sold it to Ginsters for a fabulous return of about 6 times what we paid for it. It was a great deal. I got all the publicity. I got all the press. It was all me, apparently.
Yeah.
It was all my money. It wasn't, clearly. But you roll with the PR and you roll with the media. I knew my worth in that type of role. We did it again a second time. Second fund, we did similar. But all this time I was learning, going into boardrooms with some of the most successful people in the country.
Always learning, yeah.
Having to learn what EBITDA was, and CapEx and all these sorts of things. And I'm sat in meetings going, Googling on my phone, writing notes about what does this mean? What does that mean? Wanting to learn. And I like to say, even in the early days of that, I was the idiot in the room by some distance. Now, you're talking about senior partners at accountancy firms, law firms, guys that have done this for a living their whole life. And I'm sat there going, what am I doing here?
But it's stretching you, you're learning.
But I wasn't afraid to speak up.
Right.
And I remember when we bought West Cornwall Pasty Company, I'd been around London and there was one in Hammersmith station at the time, and I'd gone there, awful. Looked horrific. And I went around alone, and I've sent an email, why are we buying these? They look awful. No one is going into them because as a food place, it looks terrible. Right, okay, take that on board.
Yeah, you've still got an opinion.
And I would sit in meetings and I said I would ask the idiot question.
Yeah.
A lot of people would sit there and they'd run the numbers and they'd talk about this, and I would go, but why are people going to go and buy our product when it looks awful? Yeah, okay, good point. We need some marketing and we need to change that. And again, it's a different perspective. and don't be afraid.
And maybe something that those guys wouldn't have thought of because it's not within their realm.
It's
Nothing's a stupid question.
it's the
at the end of the day.
no. You think it is, and go,
Yeah.
well, and they go, okay, right, I get that.
I made a whole career of it. My boss at ESPN once told me that we love you in the mix zone because you get the best answers from some really silly questions.
But
It worked.
it's the same. It's the same. I think unless you know the answer, then it's not a silly question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to learn at some point. Doesn't matter whether you're 7 or whether you're 47. You still have to ask sometimes what you perceive as silly questions. But if you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer. So yeah, so the business side of it has been fantastic for me. Something that I really enjoy. Really sort of got teeth stuck into, sitting in boardrooms, seeing how the best of the best do it. And
Who'd have thought?
well, but
When you were a young player, though, did you ever think that you
I was
might
always
end
tight.
up?
Oh yeah, I was always tight. I was always looking after the pennies. That came from my nan.
Yeah.
I used to look after my nan and go around and go and pick a pension up, take her shopping,
Uh-oh.
and it would be little jam jars. And it'd be like, right, £5 for the electric, £5 for the water, £5 for the gas, 10 quid for this, whatever. And actually, there's £1 left over. We'll put it in this little plastic cat thing for you and your brother when you go on holiday, whatever it was. It's the only thing when she died and passed that I wanted.
Oh.
I just said, I just want the black cat. Don't care about anything else. Because it was
The symbolic.
yeah, it was. And it taught me, it taught me how to budget.
Yeah.
And it was very much like, unless you've earned it, you can't spend it. So you don't do credit cards. You don't buy stuff on credit and on the never. You earn it, then you spend it. Yeah, and that goes back to not having any money as a child. And, I think my first full football kit was an England kit. Someone bought a socks, someone bought a short, someone bought a shirt. Sort of three, Christmas presents, all in one. But it was like, to get the whole kit, you had to everyone had to pull together to get it.
What was your first pay packet? What kind of?
First, you like
You
this.
got it.
Well, first pay slip. So this is quite funny. So first, and as apprentice, first year one, I think was £26 a week. Year two,
Wouldn't go far now, would it?
year two got a big rise in year two. Year two was massive, £27.50.
No, stop it! Come on,
£27.50 a week.
I bet you questioned that.
I tried to, but you didn't have a choice. It was like, do you want to become an apprentice, or do you want to go and work in a factory?
I know I sound like an old person.
It was take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I'll take it. Okay, we did get a bus pass on top of that,
Right.
which was great. Free, so effectively free bus travel. Youth team bonus at the time was £4 for a win, £2 for a draw. Unbelievable. Second year got really good. His reserve team bonus jumped to 50 quid a win. So effectively, you won £27.50. You played in the reserves, got a win, double your money.
Isn't it incredible? We're talking, you're an England international, and those wages were not going to inspire you financially, even in those days.
No. So at the time as well. So I was at Norwich at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Chris Sutton were there and whatever. The average player, top player at Norwich, was probably earning between £1,500 and £2,000 a week in the Premier League. So that was like, wow, if I could ever earn that type of money, I've made it.
Yeah.
I'll pay my house off when I finished and I'll get a job and do whatever. Then Chris Sutton moved to Blackburn. I think biggest transfer fee in the country at that time, 5 million. It's about 10 grand a week. And it was like, can you ever imagine earning 10 grand a week? Be like, done forever. Yeah. It's like jackpot. But yeah, no, so my first pay packet, can't see it very well. It's faded a little bit.
Yeah.
Back from 1994. What are we? £975 for the month.
Wow.
There's a £30 bonus in there. That must have been a draw bonus for a reserve team game. But I think that equates to about £250 a week.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. And that was it.
Yeah.
It's like there was no bones about it. But again, I was sensible. I started paying into a pension early on. finance was never my biggest driver. I wanted to be never the greatest player in the world. And it was interesting. I spoke to Gareth about this. Sorry, Sir
Southgate.
Gareth. Yeah, sorry, Sir Gareth.
Sir
Apologies.
Southgate.
And I would always say, look, I was never the greatest player in the world, technically, whatever. And he says, well, you know what, Dan? He said, the difference is you're comparing yourself to maybe the 10 right backs that were above you in the world ever. Not there are several hundred million below that.
Yeah.
He went, you were probably better than you actually think. I went,
Yeah.
Maybe. And that's a different perspective. But again, it comes down to that. I was always looking at how can I be more successful? I wasn't as good as the best. So therefore, I could have been better. What can I have done to be better, within that? So that, again, that's just part of your nature, part of your character. But yeah, it's financial goal was never, I wanted to be an apprentice. I wanted to play in the reserves. I wanted to play in the first team. I wanted to be a first team regular. I wanted to play in the Premier League. I wanted to play in Europe. I wanted to play in international. I wanted to play in the World Cup.
It's just step by step, isn't it?
Started ticking all these boxes. Then you get to the stage, go, hang on a minute. Now I deserve to be earning some money. Now I've done all that. I'm at a certain level. I deserve parity to what other people are getting paid. And that type of, and then it does change a little bit. And as you get older and you have different responsibilities, of course money comes into it. Why wouldn't it at that stage? But I never went into something thinking, I'm doing this for money. Doing it to win. I played with broken leg, broken fingers, broken ribs. Because I wanted to win. Played with injections in my toe for 6 months.
Years.
Yeah, I played with injections in my toe for 6 months just to numb it it was broken so I could play. It's not good for your health. It's not good long term. I've got no feeling in it now, at all. But you just push yourself through it because you want to play. And that's what really annoys me now when people say, they're just doing it for the money. There'll be one or two, but one or two. All of these players play for the love of it. They're still playing charity games. I don't know why, because that's just got injury waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But, there's the love of you can't, you never leave that love of the game. It will always be one or two.
And I know you do so much outside of football, but that buzz of football is nothing like it.
No, there's not. And people, do I miss it? No. Occasionally when there's a huge game, you think, could I? I think I was fortunate. I can't do what I used to do. It wasn't just old age.
Yeah.
It wasn't just I became worse than I was. I physically cannot do it. So that gives you a little bit of like, well, I'm done.
Yeah.
Can't do it anymore. But equally now, watching my kids is the worst thing it's the best and worst thing on the planet. It's the most watching athletics is the most nerve-wracking thing ever.
Yeah.
Far worse than football.
And you've given that to your sons, like for everything that you've been through and also the charity work that you've done. You've passed that on. So it's all part of your life, and your struggle has built your family. And
people talk about legacy. What's your legacy?
That was going to be my next question.
Maybe I should be sat on that side. People talk about a legacy, and people talk about medals and this, that, and the other. Absolute nonsense. Couldn't care less.
Really?
Could not care less.
But you proudly display your England cap in the cabinet and your shirt.
It's in my office, by the way.
But that's a sense of pride, isn't it?
It's in my office because they've got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
No one sees that, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, they do now. Since COVID kicked in Zoom, people see it. But before that, no one saw it. It's only this year that we put shirts up on the wall. There's not one picture of me in the house, in football-wise, apart from in my office. That's it.
Really?
What's the point? There's no need to.
Are you more proud of what you're doing post football?
No, my legacy is twofold. So, from a financial perspective, can I help my kids? If they're willing to work and put a shift in, can I help them? Maybe not go through the struggles that I did of £26.50 a week, £27. Can I do that? Yes, help them out. And I will not give them anything. They have to earn every single penny. And again, we talk about this with friends. that have been successful. And the idea would be give them enough so they can do something. Don't give them enough so they can do nothing. They still got to work. This is not generational wealth that is just going to filter down. They can do generations do nothing for. So you got to work hard. And the other side of that, my legacy is my kids. First of all, are they good kids? Do people like them? Yeah. Do they like them more than me? Yes, 100%. Are they nicer people than me? Definitely is the answer to that. And that's what it is. It's like, right, all the mistakes that I've made, all the experience that I've had have been great because I can tell my kids, don't do this. And they go, well, you didn't do that. I said, yeah, and that's exactly why, because I know the consequences. I know if you do this is what's going to happen. So don't do what I did. I learned from it and realized actually it's not a good idea. And I'll tell you, and I'll be honest with them. Whatever it is, sport, person, whatever, don't always do what I did, but I can help you and I can teach you to be the best version of you if you're prepared to listen. They don't always, they've also been brought up to be independent and focus on themselves. But so my legacy would be my kids. Are they good kids? Are they independent? Are they successful? And success is not about finance. I want people to get that out of their head. Doctors, nurses, policemen, firemen, teachers are successful, very successful. They don't get remunerated as well as they should do. Doesn't mean they're not successful, but they work incredibly hard at their jobs. So success is being the best in your field, the best you can be at your job. So that's, put that to bed. But yeah, so just be successful, kids. And this is how you do it. And I'll help you out. And that's my legacy. It's like what people think of me, I could not care less. Really not bothered. You're always going to get stick for a commentary or a punditry or this, that, and the other, or a podcast, whatever it might be, and people have a go at you. Whatever. You've not walked in my shoes. You've not walked in my... And that's why I try to be non-judgmental and go, well, unless you've walked in somebody's shoes, the exact same path at the exact same time, we can all take the moral high ground. We can all say what decisions we would and wouldn't make until you're put in that situation. So you really have to understand sometimes why people make decisions that they do. And again, that comes back to supporting people and understanding people. People make mistakes. They're not always deliberate, but understand why they made that decision, why they thought that was the right thing to do at the time. And I think I've also learned that, yes, we've all made mistakes. We all make mistakes in life. At the time, we thought it was the right decision. So be compassionate to yourself and understand that if you went back now, you might do something different. But at the time, with the information that you had and everything that you had, it was the right decision.
And times are so different now. We often forget.
Hindsight bias is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
We'd all go,
100%.
I'd go back last week and I changed my lottery numbers. But that's as simple as it can be.
We're living in a very, very different world. And I think decision-making, even 5 years ago, is very different to how it looks today.
You make decisions at the time that you believe are right.
Yeah.
A year later, are they right? Not necessarily. Something you said might not be right. And we get obviously an awful lot, in the media world. And I think that plays into all the mental health and everything else. Just be compassionate to yourself, but be strong.
Yeah.
Stick with your beliefs. Now, if you've got something to say and you believe it's right, then say it. You don't have to offend people by that. You don't have to be nasty about it. But if you believe strongly about something, have an opinion.
Yeah.
The worst thing is not having an opinion.
And hopefully over time people will be more and more compassionate to a diverse range of opinions, let's put it that way. Danny, thank you so much.
No, pleasure.
That was amazing. This has been After the Final Whistle. Please do all the things that you normally do if you like an episode. So like, share, comment. If there's anyone that you'd particularly like to hear from, a hero of yours, do get in touch because we love the suggestions. And don't forget, we're really proud to have the support of Samaritans. You don't have to go through life alone if you're having a tough time. It doesn't have to be depression or thoughts of suicide. If you just want someone to talk to without judgment, you can call Samaritans free on 116 123. This is after the final whistle, because when the final whistle blows, that is when the real game begins. See you very soon. After the final whistle, in partnership with Johnston's Paint, because when the final whistle blows, that's when the real game begins.